Introducing the Brasilis Region, a new region based entirely on Brazil and Brazilian culture. What originally started as a Fakemon dex has now transformed into a fully fledged monster taming game called Bagdex. Now you can actually add Bagdex to your Steam Wishlist right now, and there's a demo that you can play as well. And the links for all of those are down in the description. So while you're going and downloading the demo, let's check out some bagmons and check out the Brasilis region. Now the full game is going to have over 160 different bagmons, but to start with, let's go through the five starter bagmons for this region. Now while Bagdex doesn't use the traditional elements that we're used to, they have different names, but for ease of reference I'll call them the traditional names so you know what I'm talking about. Now 5 starter bagmons have the normal grass, water and fire, but there's also an electric and a ground type bagmon starter to choose from as well. Now our grass type starter is called Core, and the head makes up 90% of its body. It is giant compared to the rest of it, with its little wings and little feet and tail. Now this is based on the Spix's macaw, which was nearly an extinct species of bird in Brazil, but it was able to come back from the brink of extinction. So the dex entry for Core is very similar, where in the region, this was on the brink of extinction. So it matches its reference really well. Now, as well as that, Core also has really tiny wings, so it really struggles to fly, but it has huge determination. It evolves into Arrow Wing, which changes to a grass and flying type. Now, through the determination and the perseverance that it's shown, it's been able to grow much larger wings now, and is now very adept at flying. I do love that leaf on the head is getting a little bit larger as well as the tail has also got a large tail. It then lastly evolves into Arasure, which is very regal looking. The stars on the wings and also on the chest, but I think that massive plumage on the top of its head, being like a giant fern, looks very regal and looks very nice, I think. The tail, very long as well. Definitely looks like it is very capable of flying now. Then next, the fire starter is Picarin, which I think is very cute. This is based off the golden lion tamarin from the coastal forest of Brazil. The coloring is really nice. It's got little teeth, which I think is very cute. It's got a little start of some fiery whiskers as well. It is a very curious and sweet bagmon, and actually has red phosphorus in the tip of that tail, which it can use to start little embers to scare off predators. It evolves into Golderin, and we can see those flames on the whiskers, and also the eyebrows now are becoming quite prominent within this one. It's getting a little bit more larger and more confident now. You can see that mane is really starting to flare out a little bit. And something interesting are those little gemstones on the wrists of Golderin there, which are quite nice. It then evolves into Doraleon, which becomes a fire and steel type now. Now that steel typing is coming from the mane. Instead of being really fluffy like we saw in the previous evolutions, it's changed to a sharpened edge, and you can see almost like a bit of an axe look on the end of that mane, and you can see on the arms as well that kind of axe look, so that is giving it its steel typing. But those gemstones that we saw in the pre-evolutions have now sort of made bangles on the wrist and the legs there. Next, the water type starter is called Cappy, which looks very cute. I love that there's a big pool of water in the top of its head. Of course, this is based on a capybara, and I really like the big buck tooth that it has as well. Its head actually looks bigger than the rest of the body. I can imagine it falling over from being very top heavy. Now, Cappy is known as the symbol of natural balance within the region. You can see it balancing water on its head, but these bagmons are known to lead to fresh pastures and clean water, and they're a very fast swimmer, and actually as they swim through the water, they purify it as they go. It evolves into Warakapi, which is now becoming a lot larger and is actually very thick and armored. We can see that armor coating over the shoulders especially, and it's mimicking armor plating and is a very defensive and tough bagmon. And then finally evolves into Capylord, which changes to a water and rock type bagmon. So you can see that rocky armor plating all over the shoulders, the arms, and the legs. But what I think is really interesting, it's almost got like a little runic symbol or something like that on its chest, which I think is very interesting. It also looks like a giant ball, so I can imagine this rolling up into a ball, almost like an armadillo, and being just an armored plate ball that would be very tough to break through. Next, we're going to the ground type starter, which I think is so exciting to have more than 3 starters. We have Anchi, the pure ground type starter. Now, this is based on the silky anteater, which is the smallest known anteater in the world, and this does look very little and very cute. Now, this is a shy bagmon that specializes in digging, as we can see with its little front paws, and it likes to dig through the earth to look for food, but also for shelter as well. It is very well camouflaged within the earth, which makes it a very elusive bagmon to find. It evolves into Tamaruf, which is now based on a much larger anteater. I love the big tail that it's got, which is matching more of a traditional anteater. The tongue sticking out, but still the eyes are closed. Makes it look like it's kind of cheeky, I think. But it's kind of interesting. It has a bit of a blue gem on the chest there as well. It then evolves into Tamandua, which is now a ground and fighting type bagmon. It's looking really large compared to the small starter that we had at the beginning. We can see it's got a really long tongue, which I can imagine it using like a whip. It is that fighting type, but with those massive claws, the tail, I can definitely see this doing a lot of damage in battle. And that blue diamond symbol that we had in the middle evolution has now came into almost looking like a shield kind of look here, I think. Next, the electric type starter, which is Magato. Now, this is combining both a jaguar and an ocelot together. Now, this bagmon is a nocturnal hunter, but as it stalks its prey in the night, as it attacks, its tail actually lights up and completely stuns and blinds its opponent as it is attacking, especially during the night. A sudden flash of light really disorientates its opponent. So it's actually a very successful hunter, despite just being a first stage evolution. When it evolves into Marigato, we can see that tail has now split into two. So as it is attacking, that light is even brighter and stuns the opponent even more. And then its final evolution is called Thunderlot, which probably isn't a big surprise to change to an electric and dark type bagmon now. We can see that tail is now split again into a third tail, but instead of being the light bulb shape, it's now like a luminescent rod instead. But it does make the whole design look very, very streamlined. Now, when I played the demo for Bagdex, I chose the electric starter just because I thought it'd be really cool to use a non-grass water fire type starter, and I just really love the jaguar design. Now, if you also want to give the demo a go, the link is in the description, and while that's downloading, let's look at some more bagmons. Now, this game is still in development. There's going to be a lot more bagmons to come, but I'm just going to share a little bit of a teaser about what else we can see in the region. And the next one is Caramello, which is a pure normal type bagmon. And I think this looks absolutely adorable. It's combining the famous Brazilian caramel colored dog, but also with caramel candy as well, of course, giving it that drippy element. Now, it does have two more evolutions, but we're not going to be able to see those today because we don't have information on them just yet. But we can see down the bottom, they do look very, very cool, especially that final evolution. I like that one a lot. Now, of course, this is a puppy, so it is very energetic and very active, and wherever it runs, it drips caramel behind it as it goes, which I think is very cute. Then next we have Iasa, which is a pure grass type bagmon. Now, this combines the acai berry with a karimbo dancer, but unfortunately this little guy is too shy and not very confident in his dancing abilities just yet. We can see down the bottom that it has got a split evolution, but I can just show you one of them today. And that is Sorbitine, which changes to a grass and ice type bagmon now. So the split evolutions are either the northern or the southern version, so the Sorbitine is the southern version. Now, this is based on the acai ice cream, which is very popular within Brazil, of course giving it that ice typing as well, but it's also based on waltz dances, so it's a lot more confident within its dancing ability now. I absolutely love this next bagmon in Kitty because I have a black cat myself. We can see this has really bright yellow eyes as well, which as it stalks its prey in the night really shine out and is very obvious to see it. Within the region, this bagmon is associated with superstition, kind of like in the real world as well. So I'm going to assume that you would either love or hate this if you were in this region. But I think it looks very cute, so I love it. Then next we have Clayzard, which as you can see is the second evolution from it looks like a little sparrow or something in that first evolution there. Clayzard is a ground and flying type that looks like a turkey and also looks like it's got maybe like a clay mountain or maybe a volcano on its back there. There's no lava or anything, so it almost looks like there's a cork in the top of the volcano there, but we can see that smoke is coming out from the head and the chest and the tail of this bagmon. Then we have a very interesting bagmon next. This is called Dapturn, and this is a synthetic and electric type bagmon. Now, as I said earlier, all the typings do have new names within this region, but a synthetic typing is one that I've never seen or heard of before, which I think is really interesting, but I think it also makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of mons out there that could be a synthetic typing, like not one that's based on an animal or something like that, just those objects kind of mons, so I think a synthetic typing would really work for that. So this is based on those international adapters where you plug lots of different cords all together, and if you were to combine lots of these different kinds of plugs, it kind of makes a monster. We can also see down the bottom that is the middle evolution. There's still a baby form and an adult form to come, and that adult form does look very complex, I think. Then next we have Duraline, which is a rock and psychic type bagmon. This is again a final evolution. We can see there would be two earlier ones to come. Now this is based on Paraiba tourmaline, which is a very rare and very precious gemstone, which is found in Brazil. Of course, giving it the coloring for this bagmon here. This is also based on Bodhisattva or from Buddhism, as we can see with the many arms that this bagmon has, but also the way it's holding its fingers as well is like from Buddhism. Then next we have another synthetic type mon, which is Sodla, and as you can see it looks very cute, but it's also based off those little chubby soda bottles that are apparently very popular within the 90s and early 2000s within Brazil. So I think this looks adorable, and as we can see it's part of a 3-stage evolution, and as it evolves the straw actually splits off and it kind of makes the hair, which is cool too. Then next we have Makuruki, which is a normal and fighting type Bagmon. Now, although I say it's a fighting type, the fighting type within Bagdex is actually called the warrior type, which I think is really cool. So warrior typing for this one. This is based off a little biscuit or a cookie. Now, the reason it's a fighting type is because within Brazil, they have these little cookies or biscuits, but there's actually a lot of argument going on about whether you call it a biscuit or a cookie. So to have a bit of a play on that, they have made this a fighting type. We can also see it's got that really big pompadour kind of hairstyle. We can see that hairstyle is taking up most of this Bagmon here. And we see the evolution in the bottom there. You can see it is very, very apparent. Which, yep, it is definitely taking up the majority of this Bagmon. This evolves into Yan Cookie now. It's also got that little, like, hey, look going on here with the fingers, I think, which is very cool. It looks like it would fit right in with the Grease movie. Then next is Eggby, which is a pure normal type Bagmon. Very clearly based on a baby chick that was not quite ready to hatch. So it still has the bottom half of its shell, which is kind of like a diaper. And we can also see a bit of a runny egg going on for the hairstyle there. Now this actually has a three-way split evolution. It's got a female evolution and then it's got two different male evolutions, which were obviously based on roosters. But our evolution based on a hen is called Chook. It remains the pure normal type, and this looks very, very motherly. We can see the back of it there, where the tail is almost looks like the egg from Eggby earlier. Now, as well as a hen, this is also based on the egg-holding chicken bowls that apparently is very popular within Brazil, especially among the grandmas. So that's why it gives it this kind of shaping here. Then next is Sim, which is a pure psychic type Bagmon. It's clearly based on a clown, but it's also based on magicians and carnival masks as well. Giving it kind of like a jester look, but this does look very, very happy, and I can imagine it being very mischievous as well. Now, this is just the first stage evolution, but I can also show you the final evolution. And that final evolution is called Skibberdoom, which actually changes to a psychic and sound type Bagmon now. Sound being another brand new typing to go with the synthetic typing in Bagdex. Now, this is based on the Carnival King, but actually kind of has a bit of a scary kind of look to it. I guess some people are scared of clowns, but this definitely has a very scary and almost like a bit of a mischievous look as well. Then next is Flap Flop, and even as someone that's not Latino themselves, I've heard about the dreaded Chunkler. So this Bagmon is based off the Chunkler, and I love that it's a synthetic and flying type Bagmon. I think that definitely makes sense because I've heard that those things can fly like an arrow and do some damage. And for those that don't know, essentially it's what Brazilian or Latin mothers would use to discipline their kids, if you know what I mean. Now, it is no surprise that Brazilians love music. So we have Jingle Box next, which is a pure sound type Bagmon, of course, based on a little Bluetooth speaker. We can see the coloring on the edge of the speakers, but it's even got a little face within there as well. And even the little stand kind of makes it look like it has legs. Now, this also has a split evolution. Unfortunately, I can only show you one of them today, but that is Jingle Boom, which now changes to a sound and steel type Bagmon. Now, this looks intense. It almost looks like it's hallucinogenic in a way with the speakers, but also that sunglasses look on its face with all the coloring and the lines. And I can imagine this Bagmon being very, very loud, which makes sense for the sound typing there. It almost looks like it's got a backwards hat on it as well with the top of it and the dial there. Now, I absolutely love Berserkules. This is a bug and rock type Bagmon now. I think this looks really cool, based of course on the Hercules beetle. And as well as the beetle, it's also based on a tank warrior. So it actually has 4 legs, which look like they're really sturdy and really tough. I also think combining Berserk and Hercules within the name really works for this design. Then next is Chilimang, which is an ice and steel type Bagmon. This is the evolved form. We can see the baby form there in the bottom, and I think this looks really cool. It definitely looks very cunning and very deadly. Now, this may look like it's based off a wolf, but it's actually based on the Pampas fox, which is a fox that lives within the coldest regions of Brazil. Of course, giving it its ice typing here, but then it is also based on Garurumon for all the fans of other monster taming games out there. Now, its mane is actually created from cold, hard steel and can slice through almost anything, but this Bagmon is mainly solitary, but very, very ruthless. Now, next, there are lots of different legendary and mythical Bagmon within Bagdex, but they're actually called folkloric Bagmon instead. And all of the folkloric Bagmon are based off different Brazilian myths and legends. At the moment, we only have one that's been released, and that is Cobra Torch, the fire and dark type Bagmon. Having a quick look down the bottom, you can see there is lots still to come, but I absolutely love Cobra Torch. If the others to come are anything like that, I think that'll be phenomenal. Now, Cobra Torch is based on the Boitata legend, a giant fiery snake that is known as the protector of the forests. It has lots of eyes all over its body, and Cobra Torch is kind of mimicking that design as well with the pattern along its body. And at night, that pattern looks like glowing red eyes within the darkness. Now, it has giant fangs, but it's more like an anaconda where it prefers to wrap around and constrict its enemy. Because, of course, there's lots of anacondas in Brazil. But that's Cobra Torch, and I cannot wait to see the rest. Don't forget that you can wishlist the full game on Steam, or you can play the demo right now with the link in the description. Here's some of my favorite Bagmons we've seen so far, but let me know what your favorites are down in the comments. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.